Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel, and today is a very exciting day because it's going to kick off the entire week that is a very busy week for me here on the channel, because of course we have the Invincible series, which has just been blowing up here on my channel. We have episode 7 coming out very soon, so I will have a video up on that. Plus, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier has its season finale, which I'm saying season, not series finale, because they're tinkering with the idea of doing a season 2, which is extremely exciting. So we have a season finale for that show as well later this week. And then, of course, we have the Oscars on Sunday, which is what this video is going to be all about. And I probably will have my video of, my thoughts on the aftermath of the Oscars ceremony this year. But I will be doing this video here ranking all 8 movies that have been nominated for Best Picture. And unfortunately, I don't think I'll have time to make a video just going over my ballot and my predictions for the Oscars, but I will be posting it on my Twitter, so make sure you guys go ahead and follow that one as well. And as always with any ranking list, this is my personal opinion on these films. I actually think that all 8 of these movies are at least good, ranging from just good to absolutely amazing, which is my number 1 pick. So let's just jump right into this thing with number 8. If I'm being honest, my favorite thing about Mank was the fact that I watched Citizen Kane in preparation for this movie, and Citizen Kane is amazing. It actually lived up to the exponential hype that has built up for this movie for me, because I always heard that it's one of the greatest films of all time, and actually lived up at least a lot closer to that expectation than I was really expecting. And Mank did a good job at, paying homage and just paying a tribute to that film, and the way that this movie is structured, and the way this movie is shot, and the way this movie even sounds. It sounds like it could have been made in the time period that Citizen Kane came out, and David Fincher does a phenomenal job at recreating this world. And it's a movie that Hollywood would definitely want to nominate for Best Picture, because again, it's about Hollywood. This is a type of movie that has been, nominated for decades in terms of the Oscars. Of course, you have La La Land being a more recent pick for that type of, homage to LA and homage to Hollywood and homage to movies in general. And this is the pick for this year, and I enjoyed it for the most part. I do think it's a little tiresome. I didn't really care about the characters as much as I wanted to, even though Gary Oldman does the best he possibly can. I just couldn't really buy myself into it, and I wasn't as invested as I was to Citizen Kane. But that being said, I'm comparing it to Citizen Kane, so what am I really talking about? I think this is an enjoyable movie. Honestly, don't remember much of it. I watched it when it first came out, and I didn't really want to do a rewatch before the Oscars. I probably should have, and I honestly might still do that, because I have a few days before the actual ceremony comes out. But, this movie was just okay to me. I liked it. I think it's a good movie. I think Amanda Seyfried is fantastic and phenomenal in this film. And I think she even outshines a Gary Oldman in certain aspects of this movie. And their dynamic between each other was great. And I never did a full review for this movie, so that's as good as you guys are going to get. But I enjoyed it for the most part. And coming in at number 7 is a film that is honestly kind of fitting to be at number 7. This is The Trial of the Chicago 7. And if I'm being honest, I would have taken this movie out of the Best Picture nominees and replaced it with Mangrove, which I do have a review out for. It's part of the Small Axe series. It's a phenomenal movie, and I believe I have a review out for it. I'm actually not quite sure now that I say that, but it is a phenomenal movie, and it's about a court case similar to this one, but it is in the UK, and I think that movie is much stronger than this one. Although this one has the fast, quippy, witty, writing by Aaron Sorkin and the direction by Aaron Sorkin, and this movie is extremely entertaining. I can see myself sitting in the theater, with a crowd for the Best Picture showcase at AMC, and just absolutely enjoying the hell out of my time, laughing and enjoying the story and the fast-pacedness of this film. But I think overall it lacks the impact that a movie like this should have, because yes, the court case and the actual true story of it is very interesting. I think a documentary on this subject would do much better than a film, because I feel like there's certain aspects of the story that just were not covered as strongly as I wanted it to be. In particular, the storyline of Bobby Seale was extremely trimmed down, and this is the most interesting aspect of this entire story, this entire case. And I do like the flashbacks and the way that they kind of use the other characters and how it builds up with the events that happens at the end of this movie that, caused this entire trial to be a thing in the first place, and how it's just all a huge, it's a terrible situation that should have never happened. And yes, it is a great true story, and it is a very fascinating story to talk about and to learn about, but I just think this movie was a little lackluster. And coming in at number 6 is Nomadland, and honestly, this is a little generous placement for me for this movie. For one, because I'll say, to preface my thoughts on this film, first off, I want to say that I think this movie will grow on me as I grow older, and I think this movie will probably be extremely impactful for people of a certain age, but for me, personally, and where I'm at in my life, I just couldn't relate as deeply as I wanted to for this film. And to be honest, I fell asleep every single time I tried to watch this movie. It took me 3 attempts to watch the entirety of this film, and I recently, sat down and tried to watch the whole thing, and I still fell asleep at the exact same point about like halfway through the movie. And it's not that this movie is boring. I think it's slowly paced, and it's just like a slice of life type story where you're watching these characters, or at least Frances McDormand, live her life in this nomad type of lifestyle. And the cinematography is gorgeous. It's a beautiful movie. It just didn't really hold my attention. I really do think the last half of this movie is much better than the first half. I think it really built on me, and the ending was impactful, and because I actually know somebody who has that type of thing where they can't bring people into their life, and they can't, have, people want to connect to this person, but they just quite can't accept that, acceptance of other people. And I think this movie tackles that idea, and it is very well done. It's a very beautiful story when it comes to the ending, and I saw the point of the movie when it coalesced and in the final moments of the film. It just, throughout the journey, I just didn't really care about her story of walking through Amazon or walking through a trailer park, and as beautiful as the movie looked, it just kind of, I just didn't relate, and I couldn't, lock into this movie nearly as much as I wanted to. But that being said, Chloe Zhao did a phenomenal job directing this movie, and I actually think she has a really good chance at winning the director spot. And this movie will probably win for Best Picture, because I think this is a movie that the Academy really loves, because she was able to get such phenomenal performances out of people who are not actors. Everybody in this film, besides, the main two, Frances McDormand and David Strathairn, I think I'm saying his name right, but besides them, everybody else in this film is real life people, and they tell their real life stories. And I think this is a type of mix between documentary and real life that I think really, really was an interesting choice to do. And the type of performances and the type of heart that you get out of these characters telling their story were some of the best scenes in this movie, and it had a lot of very impactful, heartfelt, monologues by certain characters. But overall, as a film, I just was not, wrapped up in the story. Coming in at number 5 is actually a movie that I just watched today. I watched Minari finally, and I actually adored this movie to pieces. And it's another one of those slice of life type of storylines like Nomadland, but instead of, the story that Nomadland had, this is about a Korean family trying to adapt to America and live that American dream, which Steven Yeun is so desperately trying to, become independent and free, and having a plot of land, and, trying to be a successful farmer and trying to find that success and to have a family that he loves, that he's taking care of, and all these different things, while also his wife is struggling to maintain this type of lifestyle because she's not sure if it's working. She's not sure if this marriage is working, and these two characters in that relationship was just phenomenal in this movie. But the big takeaway from this film, for me at least, was the relationship between the grandmother and the young son of the movie. And this was just really heartfelt and beautiful story. Everybody had nice tiny little character arcs, but especially the son and the grandma's relationship was just the purest point of joy in this movie. And yes, it is a slice of life type thing, so it is kind of slow, and you're just kind of watching these characters live their lives and do these things. But I do think it builds to a certain point, and the ending, I thought, it felt a little abrupt at first, but the more I think about it, the more I think that it is very symbolic and beautiful of how it started and how it ended. This is a movie that I would want to watch again, just purely to see the whole picture from, after you have seen the whole picture, going back and seeing every single small moment leading to the next so perfectly. And number 4 is The Father, which this movie really surprised me, because I hadn't heard about this movie until Chris Stuckman had it on his number 1 of the 2020 movies of the year list, and that really shocked me because I had never heard of this movie. Anthony Hopkins is great, but I knew nothing about this movie going into it, and I saw how personal it was to him and how impactful it was to him, and it seemed very interesting. So I went to this movie, and it really does a great job at showcasing this character who's dealing with Alzheimer's from his perspective, and how it treats that like Christopher Nolan treated Memento and that memory loss situation in that movie. And that is, you see Anthony Hopkins seeing characters, at one point having Olivia Colman be his daughter, and next point another actress is playing his daughter, and that confusion and that type of disorientation that this movie gives you. And the production design does a great job, because there's points in this movie where I felt insane because things just looked different, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The set was the same, but the actual production design and the continuity errors within this movie that was purposeful really threw me for a loop. And this movie told the story very beautifully, and it was heartfelt, and it was frustrating in the fact that you're basically watching this movie with Alzheimer's, and things are changing, and things are not, continually flowing perfectly. And, this movie could have easily fallen into the fault of being extremely confusing and being extremely just jarring and disorienting and extremely just uncomfortable to watch in all the wrong ways. But I would say everything I just said, it does still do. Don't get me wrong. You're still disoriented. You're still confused. You're still, frustrated and all those things that I just said, but they're all in a positive way because this movie knows how to manipulate your emotions in the way that the filmmakers are trying to portray Alzheimer's. And I think this movie is brilliant in terms of the performances and in terms of the actual talent behind the camera. And I think this movie was nominated for production design, and it better win for production design because the amount of effort put into that aspect of it, that set design that kept on changing, it was very detail oriented and very impressive. And again, I cannot understate the great performance by Anthony Hopkins, who will definitely not win the Oscar for Best Actor from this movie, but he is damn good, one of his best performances, and it's a truly heartbreaking thing to see him towards the end of this film, and it's heart-wrenching and it really hit me emotionally. Number 3 is a movie that just blew me away, and it is Sound of Metal. This movie was a damn good time on Amazon Prime, at least. I wish I got to see this in theaters with the fantastic sound design that is for sure going to win the sound Oscar this year. But it is a movie that really dives into this character played by Riz Ahmed that, is a metalcore, like hardcore band player, drummer, and he loses his hearing, and you follow this experience, again, similarly to The Father, and how you're following this character's newfound disability and seeing him explore this new way of living, essentially this new community, the deaf community that he is trying to adapt to and trying to live with, and you get to see it from his perspective. The sounds drown out at certain points, and it's very, very well done. And I have a lot of deaf family in my family in general, so I thought it was great to see the deaf community represented in this sort of way because it was very, very interesting to see all of it play out, and it was heartbreaking to see the relationship between Olivia Cook and Riz Ahmed, and that thing kind of just be strained in the worst possible way. How do you put a relationship through something like this where their entire relationship is based upon music and based upon them playing as a band together, and how they kind of help each other with their own mental illnesses and their own mental faults, and they're perfect for each other in that way, but with things changing within their lives and this huge life-changing just events that happens, how that affects that relationship, how it pressures that relationship, and how it ultimately changes that relationship forever. And I think that aspect of it was extremely well done, along with the phenomenal performances, an award-winning performance from Riz Ahmed, if it weren't for Chadwick Boseman in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is definitely going to win the Oscar for that. And I'm honestly shocked that movie wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but you win some, you lose some, but this movie definitely deserved the spot. It is extremely well directed, well made, and well acted, and it is one of my favorites on this list. Okay, number 2 on this list is the movie that I'm very excited to continue talking about because everybody needs to see this movie. It is Judas and the Black Messiah, and this movie just blew me away when I saw it. I got a chance to see it at Sundance, actually, so I got to see it a few weeks early, so I have a review up, a full review if you want to watch that. I definitely recommend watching that one. But what I want to talk about most in this little segment of, putting this as my number 2 is the fact that this is a story, a true story that was never taught in the schools. And the fact that this type of stuff isn't taught is just baffling. I had no idea that this story was a thing before I watched this film, and the fact that I didn't know that, and I live in this country where this is extremely important, and yes, things are changing for the better now, but the fact that I didn't really learn about the Black Panther Party when I was in school, and in some ways, some people even learned about the Black Panther Party being a terrorist organization, that is just baffling to me because this movie really does show the story, and it's really focused on Lakeith Stanfield as this, informant, this FBI informant character that is essentially a rat, and you're following this rat throughout this organization and his struggle of, dealing with his identity as being a black man in America, and also struggling with his identity of being, struggling and wanting to make money and wanting to do these things and trying to get out of that sort of life. And he just finds himself in such a rabbit hole that he's spiraling down towards, and it is a heartbreaking story from his perspective. And Daniel Kaluuya will probably win the Oscar for Best Supporting. I wish Lakeith Stanfield would get it because he really is the star of the movie. He should have gotten a nomination for Best Actor and not Best Supporting Actor. But that being said, Daniel Kaluuya gives possibly his best performance to date in this movie. He is phenomenal in this movie, and his chance in those sequences where he's trying to build up that rally of all the people in the Black Panther Party is phenomenal. This character is so powerful and so poignant, and learning about his character and his story and what he meant for the community at the time was really, really important to see. And again, I'm baffled that this is the first time that I'm hearing about this story, and I've seen this movie now several times, and I love it each time just a little bit more than the last. This movie is very, very good, and I highly recommend everybody to check out this movie. It's definitely deserving of the number 2 spots on this list, and definitely deserving of that Best Picture nomination. And as you guys have probably guessed by now, Promising Young Woman is my number 1 of the Best Picture movies of this year. And it's not my favorite of the year. That actually belongs to Da 5 Bloods, but I actually watched this movie after I made my best movies of 2020 list, and this one would honestly be my number 2 movie of last year, because this one is just phenomenal from beginning to end, and it has that charm and that colorful cotton candy type of tone to it at certain points, but it is also a very hard-hitting, emotionally draining, and just phenomenal powerhouse performance by Carey Mulligan, and excellent direction by Emerald Fennell. And this movie just blew me away and knocked my socks off, and just it crushed me by the ending of this film. And I won't dare spoil it for you guys if you have not seen this movie. It is definitely worth checking out and worth buying. I'm definitely going to buy this one when it comes out on physical media. This is a movie that I've seen several times. Universal actually just did a free screening for it on their Twitter. They released some things with Universal, and it was like an RSVP, first come, first served screening for it. That was just a few days ago. And of course, I decided to watch it for a third time there. I saw it twice in theaters. This movie just, it really impacted me. And this released in Sundance last year and has just built up in my mind, because I always heard about this movie before its release date and when it was pushed back. And, I got this poster which actually has the April release date, and that's when it was supposed to come out last year. And so I was looking forward to this movie for almost an entire year before I finally saw it. And when I did, it lived up to every expectation of mine and actually surpassed it in almost every single way as well. I cannot commend Carey Mulligan more in this little segment of this. I actually have a full review up if you want to check that out as well. But this movie, just with her performance, just really was impactful. And in a world post the Me Too movement, and seeing how that movement kind of pushed into this movie, and how it helped create this film being released, and how it's helping tell these stories, and how it's helping different organizations like RAINN, that is extremely important and that should be definitely helped. I'm definitely going to donate myself, and I recommend you guys to donate yourself as well for this movie and this foundation that this movie is really trying to support. And this is a film that I just cannot stop recommending to people. It is powerful, it is funny, it is dark, it is witty, and just fun, and just draining, and everything that I've said in this video for this movie is true about it. And I think that everybody, just as well as Judas and the Black Messiah, is a very important movie for everyone to watch. And if I'm being honest, I will never be able to say anything about this movie nearly as well as Trin Level did on her channel with her commentary for it. So I highly recommend listening to her thoughts on this movie as well, because I think that is more important than anything that I will ever have to say about this subject. So thanks guys for watching this rankings of all these Best Picture movies. I loved talking about most of these movies. I think the first few are okay and just kind of a little bit forgettable for me, but when it comes to the great movies from Minari forward, those ones will really stick with me, and probably Nomadland as I grow older. But I love each and every single one of these movies to varying degrees, and especially these later ones, and I just really enjoyed talking about it. So thanks guys for watching this video. Comment down below what your rankings are for all of these films, and what do you think should win Best Picture. I honestly really hope Promising Young Woman wins. I think it has a damn good chance at winning, but I do think Nomadland is probably going to pull it off. But that being said, I will finally have a Best Picture winner poster, which is very exciting, because it's got to be one of those two. So thanks guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one.